Before we dive into this nightmare, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell if you think you can handle the truth behind Chicago's darkest subway attack. It was just past 7:30 p.m. when the downtown Chicago Blue Line train lurched into the Clark and Lake station, its fluorescent lights flickering like an ominous heartbeat. Most passengers were wrapped in the monotony of their commute, headphones in, eyes glued to phones, hands clutching worn coffee cups. But in one corner, chaos was about to erupt, and no one would ever forget the scream that cut through the hum of the train. Bethany MaGee, a 26-year-old graduate student with a bright future, had just stepped into the car, her backpack heavy with books and a laptop. She didn't notice the man sitting near the doors, Lawrence Reed, 50, his face a mask of quiet focus, clutching a nondescript bottle. It was an ordinary night on the city train, until it wasn't. In a sudden horrifying flash, Reed threw the liquid across her and fire erupted. Passengers screamed, some screaming louder than others, as Bethany's body ignited in a ghastly display of smoke and flame. Panic spread like wildfire. People trampled over bags, shoved each other toward exits, and in the chaos, no one could think clearly. Yet amid the terror, one man's instincts took over. A fellow commuter grabbed the emergency lever and pulled it, sending the train into a screeching metallic halt. When the doors opened, fire extinguishers hissed, and paramedics fought desperately to douse the flames, licking at Bethany's arms and clothes. Her screams were unbearable, echoing through the station like a siren of doom. Reed, meanwhile, didn't flee far. Witnesses said he calmly walked out, as if nothing had happened. It would later be revealed that he had bought gasoline moments before, walking casually from a gas station to the train station with deadly intent. Detectives arrived within minutes, sealing off the station, interviewing shaken passengers, and analyzing the chaos. Surveillance footage revealed horrifying clarity, the methodical way Reed moved, his face calm and emotionless, and the sheer premeditation of the act. In the police station, investigators pored over the video frame by frame, trying to understand why a man with a history of arrests, more than 70 over decades, would suddenly escalate to this level of violence. Questions began stacking like bricks against the wall. Why Bethany? What drove Reed to attack a stranger in such a brutal and public way? And why now, after decades of brushes with the law? The investigation quickly revealed that Reed had been under some form of supervision. Electronic monitoring, temporary releases, a revolving door of arrests and probation, all systems had failed to prevent him from carrying out this calculated act of terror. As the night deepened and Bethany was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, detectives discovered something chilling in Reed's apartment. A wall covered with notes, maps, and photographs of random people, including Bethany. Each photo was meticulously labeled with times, dates, and locations, a web of obsession that sent shivers through the officers who found it. But the most shocking discovery came when they opened a locked drawer in his apartment. Inside were receipts for gallons of gasoline, empty bottles, and a journal with a single line scrawled over and over. "The fire cleanses, the city will remember." For detectives, the meaning was clear. This was not a random act of rage. This was premeditated, calculated, and it was far from over. And then, just as they thought they had the full picture, another photograph fell from the journal, one of a young girl, eerily similar to Bethany, and scribbled next to it, "Next time." Detectives Marcus Flynn and Alina Ruiz stood in the dimly lit interrogation room, eyes fixed on Lawrence Reed. The 50-year-old man's calm demeanor was unnerving. He didn't flinch, didn't stammer, didn't show the slightest hint of remorse. His hands rested on the table, neatly folded, as if he were waiting for tea rather than facing charges for attempted murder and federal terrorism. Outside, the Chicago Police Department was a hive of controlled chaos. Officers combed through Reed's apartment again, uncovering layers of carefully hidden clues. Notebooks filled with dates, locations, and names, some crossed out, others circled in red. The handwriting was meticulous, almost clinical, Yet the content was disturbing. Lists of subway lines, peak commuting times, and notes like vulnerable targets and public impact maximum.
Forensics teams had swabbed every surface in the Blue Line train car. Residue tests confirmed gasoline, accelerates, and traces of a chemical compound often used in industrial cleaners. Investigators realized that Reed hadn't just planned an attack, he had studied fire behavior, human response, and chaos management. This was a meticulously designed act meant to terrify and dominate. Meanwhile, the city's hospitals were on high alert. Bethany MaGee's condition remained critical. Burn units worked around the clock, but even with the best care, her recovery was uncertain. Family members sat in hushed corners of the hospital, eyes red from crying, hands clenched, struggling to comprehend how something so unimaginable could happen to someone so full of life. As detectives dug deeper into Reed's past, a pattern emerged. 72 arrests over 3 decades, including assault, vandalism, and multiple cases of arson, all minor, until now. He had been known to authorities as a volatile, unpredictable man, but no one had predicted this escalation. Social workers and parole officers admitted mistakes, lapses in supervision, and a system that had failed at every turn. But there was a more immediate concern. On the night of the attack, Reed's movements had been tracked via surveillance. He had visited a storage locker across the city 2 days prior. Officers rushed to investigate, fearing additional weapons or plans. Inside, they found what appeared to be a stockpile of improvised incendiary devices, notebooks detailing other potential victims, and a chilling manifesto. It described a personal vendetta against the city's commuters, written in obsessive, almost poetic prose. Detectives began mapping out Reed's interactions, uncovering that he had shadowed Bethany for weeks, her daily routes, her favorite coffee shops, even her university schedule. Every precaution she took to remain private was documented by him. And then came a revelation that stunned everyone. Reed had no personal vendetta against Bethany. She was a random target, chosen purely because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. The media picked up the story, broadcasting grainy images of Reed's calm face juxtaposed with the horror of Bethany engulfed in flames. Public outrage was instantaneous. Citizens demanded answers. How could someone so dangerous remain free? How could the system have failed so catastrophically? And in the shadows, Reed seemed almost to relish the notoriety. Then, just as investigators began piecing the puzzle together, the phone rang in Detective Flynn's office. The voice on the other end was frantic, barely coherent. "You need to come to the station now. There's another video. It's him, again." The discovery shook the team to their core. Reed had been recorded earlier that day in another train station, this time filming someone else, another unsuspecting commuter. The footage suggested he wasn't finished. He hadn't acted alone. There was a possibility someone else was involved, someone just as dangerous and calculating. And in that moment, a chilling truth settled over the room. The terror they thought had ended with Bethany might have only just begun. The Chicago Police Department was on high alert. Every officer, detective, and federal agent involved knew that Lawrence Reed's calculated attack could have been just the beginning. Surveillance footage combined with the evidence from his apartment and storage locker painted a portrait of a man obsessed with chaos. Yet even with all the clues, his motives remained shrouded in darkness. Detective Marcus Flynn walked slowly down the Blue Line platform, replaying the evidence in his mind. Each step echoed, a grim reminder of how one man's madness had terrorized an entire train car. He paused at the very spot where Bethany had been set on fire, imagining the panic, the screams, the acrid smell of gasoline and smoke lingering in the air. It was a moment of reckoning for both the city and for the investigators tasked with stopping the next tragedy. Meanwhile, forensic analysts continued to comb through Reed's digital footprint. Emails, messages, and dark web searches revealed something unexpected. Reed had been communicating with someone else in secret, someone who shared his obsession with public terror. The revelation sent a shockwave through the investigation. This wasn't just the work of a single disturbed man. There was a network, someone whispering instructions, encouraging him, or possibly manipulating him from behind the scenes. As detectives worked to trace the communication, a breakthrough arrived from an unlikely source. One of the witnesses from the train remembered a peculiar detail. A second man had been seen lurking near the station entrance, holding a backpack, watching the car like a predator sizing up prey. The witness's description matched a former acquaintance of Reed's, someone believed to have disappeared years ago. Suddenly, the investigation widened, revealing layers of deception that no one had anticipated. At the hospital, Bethany's condition remained critical. Doctors had stabilized her, but the burns covered over 40% of her body. Family members were exhausted, but their resilience was unwavering. Amid the chaos, Bethany's younger brother Jacob arrived and demanded answers, his voice shaking with rage. How could this happen? How could someone be allowed to plan and execute this? His questions echoed a city's outrage. Then came the final twist that no one expected. Reed, during a tense interrogation, suddenly confessed, not out of remorse, but out of a perverse desire to control the narrative. He revealed that the attack had been meticulously timed to coincide with a crowded evening rush hour, intended to maximize fear and media coverage. But the confession held another, darker secret. The photograph in his journal labeled "Next Time" wasn't a threat to another victim. It was a reference to himself, a plan for a final catastrophic act that could end everything. Detectives raced against the clock, reviewing his movements, piecing together his intended target, a train station set to host hundreds of people at a public event. Security teams were mobilized, potential hazards neutralized, and the city braced for what could have been another horrifying incident. In the end, Reed was formally charged with attempted murder, federal terrorism, and a series of arson-related offenses. He remained in custody, a man whose obsession with fire had consumed him and threatened countless others. Yet even behind bars, the image of Bethany engulfed in flames haunted the city, a grim reminder of how fragile safety can be and how a single act of madness can ripple through lives forever. And just when the city thought the nightmare was over, authorities discovered another photograph tucked in Reed's files, a grainy image of a Chicago street corner, smudged by fingerprints, labeled simply, "It's not over." The chilling reality settled in. Terror leaves traces that never fully fade. The fire had revealed the depths of obsession, but the echoes of that night would linger, haunting every commuter, every officer, and every citizen who dared to ride the blue line again.